Argentina won again, once again showing itself to be a mature, solid, patient national team fully convinced of its plan. Lionel Scaloni's team does not need to play at an impossible speed all the time in order to impose its conditions. It does not need to get desperate. It does not need to chase the game. It has a clear identity, knows when to press, when to wait, when to accelerate, and, above all, knows that in the most important moments, it still has the player who understands the game better than anyone else. But this time, the most interesting reaction did not only come from Argentina. It did not come from a former Argentine player either, or from a rival coach, or from a journalist close to the national team. It came from Kylian Mbappé, one of the biggest names of this era, one of the few footballers who can truly look toward the future and believe that he still has a career capable of competing with historic records that seem impossible. Mbappé, who knows very well what it means to face Messi, followed closely what happened with Argentina. And not only because of the result, he did it because of what this moment represents in World Cup history. Messi, after so many years, after so many World Cups, after so many nights of pressure, pain, glory, and responsibility, reached the top of the all-time World Cup scoring table. This is no longer just another record. It is a definitive confirmation. For many, Messi had nothing left to prove a long time ago. He won the Copa America, won the Finalissima, won the World Cup, became a champion at club level, conquered Ballon d'Or awards, broke records, assisted, led, moved people, and sustained for years a career that seems taken straight out of a movie. But even so, when it seemed like his story was already complete, he once again found a way to make it even greater. And that is what impressed Mbappé the most. Because the Frenchman did not speak from the distance of someone looking at a legend from the past. He spoke from the place of someone who is still competing, who still wants to reach the top, who is still hungry, and who knows that Messi, even in the final stretch of his career, keeps raising the bar higher. What Leo is doing is incredible, Mbappé said when asked about Argentina's performance and the Argentine captain's new record. You can get used to seeing him do extraordinary things, but you shouldn't. Because what he does is not normal. To reach that age in a World Cup, with that pressure, with the whole world watching, and still be decisive, that speaks of a very special greatness. The phrase sums up quite well what many people feel. Messi no longer surprises people by doing something impossible. He surprises them because he keeps doing the impossible naturally. He receives between the lines, lifts his head, chooses the best option, and seems to play with one extra second compared to everyone else. While defenders run, he thinks. While goalkeepers try to anticipate him, he waits. While the game speeds up, he decides when to stop it. Argentina understands that better than anyone. That is why the team moves around Messi with a synchronization that is not always noticeable at first glance. When Leo drops a few meters back, the midfielders get organized. When he gets close to the box, the forwards attack the spaces. When he attracts markers, free teammates appear. And when he is left in front of goal, the entire stadium understands that something can happen. That was exactly what happened once again. Argentina did not win only because Messi appeared. It won because it has a structure capable of supporting him, accompanying him, and enhancing him. But it is also true that this structure, with Messi at this level, turns into something much more dangerous. Scaloni built a competitive, intense, and selfless team. Messi gives it the final layer, the difference that cannot be trained. Mbappé, who suffered against Messi in the Qatar 2022 final and also shared a dressing room with him at PSG, knows very well that the Argentine cannot be measured only by his goals. In fact, that is the most impressive thing about this record. Messi reached the top of the World Cup scoring table without ever being a traditional box striker. He was not a number 9 who lived waiting for crosses. He was not a finisher who built his career only inside the 6-yard box. For most of his life, he was creator and finisher at the same time. That is why his record has a different kind of value. Every goal counts, of course. But behind every number, there is also a soccer story. Messi did not only score goals in World Cups, he led teams, assisted teammates, managed matches, endured criticism, guided generations, and came back again and again when many thought the story had already slipped away from him. When you look at his goals in World Cups, you understand that you are not just watching a goal scorer, Mbappé explained. You are watching a total player. Leo can score, he can assist, he can control the rhythm of the match, and he can decide a play without touching the ball. That is what makes him different. There are many enormous goal scorers, but there are very few players who dominate so many parts of the game at the same time. The praise is no small thing coming from Mbappé, because if there is anyone who can feel part of that conversation looking toward the future, it is him. At his age, the Frenchman already has an impressive World Cup story. He has already been world champion, he has already played finals, he has already scored decisive goals, and he has already shown that he does not hide on the biggest stages. In that sense, his view of Messi mixes respect with challenge. Admiration, yes, but also competition. And that is when the phrase that drew the most attention appeared. With a smile, in a joking tone, Mbappé sent a direct message to the Argentine. "I'm coming for you, Leo." It was not an aggressive phrase. It was not a cold provocation. It was more like a statement made with humor, the kind that reflects the mindset of great competitors. Mbappé knows that Messi has just climbed the highest mountain. He knows that catching him will not be easy. He knows that every goal in a World Cup carries more weight than any ordinary goal. But he also knows that his career still has chapters ahead, and that if he keeps up his pace, his name will continue getting closer to that historic conversation. "It is a joke, of course," Mbappé added, "but it is also part of soccer. Records exist to inspire. When you see what Leo did, you cannot feel anything but respect. But if you are a forward, if you are competitive, you also want to try to get there. Not because you want to take merit away from anyone, but because you want to push yourself." That is perhaps the most interesting part of this new chapter. Messi is not only making his own legend greater, he is also forcing those who come behind him to look higher. For years, many players were compared to him unfairly, sometimes too quickly, sometimes without context, sometimes as if it were easy to sustain 2 decades of excellence. But Mbappé does not seem to want to copy Messi. What he seems to be looking for is something else, building his own path while using Leo's greatness as a reference. The football relationship between the two has several layers. They were teammates, they were rivals, they shared brilliant nights and also moments of enormous sporting tension. The 2022 World Cup final remains one of the most impactful matches in history, not only because of the result, but because of the symbolic duel it left behind. Messi looking to complete his masterpiece, Mbappé refusing to surrender the throne without fighting until the very last second. That match, in some way, still floats in the air every time people talk about the two of them. Messi won the cup. Mbappé left behind a monumental individual performance. Argentina touched the sky. France was left wounded, but with the certainty of having a player prepared to dominate for many years. And now, in this World Cup, their paths are crossing again, even though they are not yet face-to-face on the field. That is why Mbappé's words carry weight, because they do not come from just any spectator. They come from a footballer who understands the pressure of being the face of a national team, of carrying gigantic expectations, and of showing up when the entire world expects something from you. Mbappé knows that Messi did not reach this place by accident. He got there because he sustained his talent with an extraordinary competitive mentality. "The hardest thing is not having one great night," the Frenchman said. "The hardest thing is repeating it for years." And Leo has done that throughout his entire career. You can discuss styles, generations, personal tastes, but what you cannot discuss is consistency. Being at the top for so many years and still showing up in a World Cup, that is enormous. Meanwhile, Argentina looks ahead with the calm of a team that started the tournament with authority, but also with the caution of a team that knows the road is only just beginning. The team won, convinced, and left positive signs. The defense looked focused, the midfield maintained balance, and the attack once again had options. But as always, the main focus was on Messi, and perhaps that is inevitable. Because every one of his World Cup matches could be the last great memory, and at the same time, every match seems to open a new page. Messi walks, observes, waits, and suddenly accelerates. He seems to manage energy, but also emotions. He knows when to appear, he knows when to speak with the ball, and when he does, history moves with him. Mbappé looks at him from another place, not as a fan, not as a resentful rival, but as a natural heir to the pressure. The Frenchman understands that Messi's era is unique, but he also knows that soccer never stops. Today, the world celebrates Leo as the all-time leading scorer in World Cup history. Tomorrow, others will try to get closer. And among all of them, Mbappé appears as the most serious, most prepared, and hungriest candidate. But for now, the moment belongs to Messi. It belongs to Argentina. It belongs to a generation that continues enjoying a player who defies the logic of time. Because at this point, Messi is not only competing against rivals, he is competing against age, against history, against his own records, and against that idea that every ending must arrive quietly. And no, Messi is not choosing a quiet ending. He is choosing an ending his way, with goals, with records, with big matches, and with the entire world talking about him once again. Mbappe's phrase then remains as a perfect image of this new stage. "I'm coming for you, Leo." A joke, yes, but also a sporting promise, a gesture of respect, a challenge for the future, and above all, proof that Messi is still the measure by which giants are compared. Because when a footballer like Mbappé looks at Messi and recognizes his greatness, the message is clear. We are not talking only about nostalgia. We are not talking only about memories. We are talking about the present, about a player who still decides matches, about a captain who still guides Argentina, about a legend who, even after winning everything, found another way to stand above everyone else. And if Messi is already the all-time leading scorer in World Cup history, the question is no longer whether his legacy is complete. The question is how much more it can grow. Because Leo is still there, Argentina is still there, and now, from somewhere, Mbappé smiles and warns that the chase is only just beginning.